is Wayne. I am a Drupal developer, and I run DrupalTutor.com, where I teach Drupal training classes for beginners through advanced. So on this live stream, we are building a new version of DrupalTutor.com. This is week 7. And so far we've built out content types and other entity types, and we've done quite a bit of migration to bring data in from the current site. And so we're going to continue there today. Last week, we were working on webinar content. And so we're going to finish that up today and then possibly start on the lesson content as well. Okay, if you are not signed up, you should go to DrupalTutor.com/live. And there you can see all of the previous episodes, and you can put in your email address to get an email each week where I'll tell you what I'll be working on each week at our weekly live session. So yeah, so sign up for updates at DrupalTutor.com/live. And all right, so yeah, we'll get started. One caveat that I always give, this is a live stream. I'm figuring stuff out live. It doesn't always work, but I'm going to talk you through the process. This is me building a real Drupal site. And so if you want to see a true case study of a real project, this is a great example. So, but just know that if you do take one of my Drupal classes at DrupalTutor.com, it's much more polished and it isn't so much me fumbling around as you might see on this live stream. All right, so let's get started. Oh, one last thing. The comments here on YouTube do work. So if you have any questions during the live stream, feel free to type in a comment. I should be able to see it here and can respond to it. Okay, so my head's cut off a bit. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so last week we were working on the webinar content, and we had 2 problems. One problem was we got stuck on the migration, and the second problem was the Zoom meeting integration that we created did not. It didn't do the duration correctly. So I have figured out the issue for both of those. And so I want to first walk through what those problems were, just for completeness. Okay, so remember that we are migrating from an existing Drupal 9 site to another Drupal 9 site, which is a little bit unusual. And so we're using this D8 entity plugin to do that, which was a contributed module that we downloaded in one of the first episodes. And the webinar content type on our new site, it's going to be a content type, a node type. On the old site, it's a custom entity. And so when we tried to do this migration, it said, I don't know what a webinar entity is. So it turned out that the resolution for that, or at least what I figured out, I don't know if there could be a better way to solve this problem, but the way I solved it is I needed to copy my entity classes over to the new code base. So when you define a custom entity, and we will do that later in the stream when we do like hosting and some other things that'll be custom entities. In order to define a custom entity, you have a class like this that declares a custom entity in a PHP annotation. This wasn't here. And actually, in general, I don't need it here because we're not going to have webinars as custom entities anymore in the new site. However, without this here, migration doesn't know what a webinar is. It doesn't know what database tables it's in or any fields that it has or anything like that. So I needed to copy over several of the pieces that basically define the webinar entity type. And I'm not going to go through them in detail because I will go through them in detail when we create some custom entity types that we actually need later. But so I have this webinar that this is where this entity type is declared. And it tells it what the fields are. If we look at the base field definitions, this tells it what all the fields are in a webinar. This is the custom entity. And then there's a few other things we needed, like the HTML route provider and the storage and stuff like that. I'm not going to go through those, but those are some related things to this entity type. And basically, I just copied those files over from the old site and put them in here. That was enough to get the migration system to see the webinar content or webinar entity type, and then it would allow it to do the migration. So there was a couple other. So once I had that working, then we had to come back and let me log in here. So we are able to do something like drush MIM, what is this? Node webinar. And let me just do one here with debug turned on. Okay, and again, this error message pops up every time we clear caches. It's not related to what we're doing. It's something else that's come with one of the other migration modules. Okay, so here is the migration debug. And I did notice one weird thing. And again, I don't know why this is happening. Probably because I have this kind of custom entity that's not fully, and I probably haven't given all the proper information to the migration system. But I did notice that some of the field data comes through really weird. Like duration comes through, and maybe this is because they're base fields or something, I don't know. But the duration, normally this would be like a field, like it's the duration field with an interval and period like subproperty. And it's not coming through that way. It's coming through as like duration _ interval, duration _ period. And the same thing with like all of the other base fields. When they have subproperties, they're coming through that way. I don't really know why. You can see the same thing here with notes, notes value, notes format. Those are two subproperties of the notes field. I don't really know why, but the data is there. So I just said, okay, well, I can deal with that. So what I've done here in the migration is I just mapped those over as they are coming through from the source entity. And so I map over here the duration stuff, and then we're making all the webinar types are going to be Zoom, I think. And here's the notes stuff. So yeah, and then we talked through all these other fields, I think, on the episode last week, so I'm not going to go through them in detail. But once I did this, you can see that this did work. And if I come over here, I should have a webinar that just got pulled in. Yeah, it's this one. I think some of these original ones, these really old ones, don't have videos associated with them. So, so that's why the media part didn't work. But I think the media part does work if you let it run to the later ones that do have videos associated with them on the current site. Okay, so that's the migration piece. We had one other problem, which was the Zoom meeting durations were wrong. That's because, and I found out that that's because I copied something over wrong. When we were writing here for the duration, we had the Zoom webinar API, it was in here. It was in DT webinar when we had like the pre-save. At one point, we are computing the duration, and I copied this function over to get the seconds, but I missed that those seconds were being divided by 60 because actually the Zoom meeting API expects you to give it minutes, not seconds. So I needed to divide this by 60, which I had not done. I had done it in the old site. I just missed it when I copied it over. So that was simple. That's why we were getting like 3-day long ones. I guess they were like 3,600 minutes long instead of 1 hour. So that fixes that. So the Zoom meeting integration is totally working. And yeah, so now the next thing we were going to do is create a bulk edit form. But before we do that, I want to create a place to put that. So I want to have like a new top level admin area up here in the Drupal toolbar for all of the learning management related stuff that we're going to be, that we will have, because we'll eventually have to manage courses and course session dates and people's registrations and a lot of stuff like that. So I want to have a section up here for that. So let's create that first, and then we'll put like a webinar admin area inside of there. So let's create a new module. And I'm just going to call it DT utils. I usually have some kind of module like this with like some prefix utils. This is just sort of like random things that we need for this project that can't be classified as like webinar or content or whatever. So something like this top level link, it works and it's necessary for everything. So, or a lot of things. So we need an info file, and let me just copy this other info file and edit it. Okay, that should be enough for that. And then in order to create a menu link, we need to create another YAML file, DT utils menu links.yaml. I think. I'm going to double check that. No, it's links menu. Sorry, I got it wrong. Hold on. DT utils links menu. Okay. And so I have something like this on the other site. So I'm just going to copy it over. DT utils admin DrupalTutor. So this is like a top level admin link. And we'll call it, actually, I don't know if I want to call it DrupalTutor. We can call it like learning management. I want to call it something more generic because remember I said I wanted to try to make some of these things a little bit more generic and not branded Drupal. So let's say admin LMS. We'll call it for learning management system. All right, so this will create a menu link to this route. So we're going to need to create this route. Let me copy over the route information that I used on the old site. So this needs to go in DT utils routing.yml. And again, let's make this LMS. And we'll call it admin LMS. Okay. So this route is going to point to the system controller, to the system admin menu block page. This is something that's built into Drupal. This is like, it's like this page. It's the one that just like any sub menu items show up here as a list, and which is fine. That's what we want, just because we don't really need it to be like designed in any other way. So we can just use that. And yeah, I think that should be all we need to at least get the link there. So let's enable the module. And then let's refresh. Okay, so I got the LMS link here. Now it doesn't look all that nice. Like it would be nice if it had a little icon there like the other ones. So we can do that. And in order to do that, I'm going to copy from Drupal Commerce, because Drupal Commerce creates its own little thing here, which, by the way, in general, if you're looking for good examples of how to do things properly in Drupal, if you getting a copy of Drupal Commerce and just seeing how they do it, they always do a great job, and they're really great examples. They have to do a lot of stuff, a lot of custom Drupal work, and so you can kind of, if you find that, if you can find a lot of great examples, let me put it that way, in there. So we're going to use them as an example for this because they have a custom menu item with an icon. So the way they do that is first we will need to, we have to have some icon files, and I did prepare this ahead of time. So I've got a couple icons that I can use. These are just, I've just found some simple, like just a random sort of group icon. So it's like got 3 avatars together, kind of. It's nothing particularly special. Okay. They need to be SVG files, and there need to be 2 of them. There needs to be one that's black and one that's gray. The specific version of gray, it's hex code 787878. That's if you wanted to match the colors up here. So the ones that are not selected are 787878 gray, and the one that's selected is black. So we need icons in both colors. So I've got that here. And we need a CSS file that will put the icons there. So I'm going to create a toolbar CSS, and then let me just copy over the CSS that from Drupal Commerce, and then we'll fix it. So our icons are at icons, and they're groups 787878. Groups 00000. All right, but we don't want to style the admin commerce link. So let's see what this link is. Okay, it is this class should uniquely identify it. I think, yeah. So if I do that, now the CSS file needs to be loaded with as a Drupal library. So I have to define a library, dtutils library with a YAML file, dtutils.libraries.yml, and the library will just be something like toolbar. Then we need to define a CSS file. And this is CSS toolbar.css. And we have to clear caches for that to pick up that new library. Oh, wait, this is not complete. It's got to have, because there can be settings that go with this. We don't need any settings, but it has to be specified that way. Okay, so that sets up the library. The only thing we need now is something that will add the library to every page, because we need this on every page because the toolbar is always available. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We need it every time the toolbar is displayed, which is not true for people who are not logged in or don't have admin access. So there is a way to do this. There is a hook that Toolbar provides to do this. So let's go here, and we need a module file. And then it's toolbar alter. It's possible to alter the items that are there. We don't really need to alter them. We just need to attach the library to the toolbar. So this is a render array, so you can do it like you would attach any other to like a form or to another twig like render array. And so we just need our library name, which is dtutils/toolbar. Okay, as we defined it right here. It's our module name / what we defined. And since I added that new hook, I think I gotta clear caches. Now, if I come back over here and refresh. Okay, so now I got my little group icon there. If I click it, you'll see that it does load this page. There are no sub items yet, so it doesn't show any links, but you can see it's in black. So the icons are all working. That looks pretty good. All right, so now under here, we want to create like a webinar admin. And the webinar admin is going to have two parts. It should probably, it should look something like the content admin page. So it should first maybe like list all the webinars, and then there should be like an add button. And then maybe the bulk create form should also go under there with like a bulk create button or something. So the listing can probably be done with views. So let's do that. So we'll add a new view called webinar admin. And we want to show content of type webinar. We want to create a page. This page is admin LMS. So let's make the path admin LMS webinar. And we can display a bunch because we'll do it like a table like the other one. So we'll do 50, which is what I think the content listing does. With a pager, we do want a menu link that says like webinars. And it should be under LMS. Okay, now do we have this webinar? Why is it not showing up on the list? Oh, maybe let me do it as a table. strange. Let me just save it and see if it, because we definitely have one webinar, right? Yes. Okay, so now that we save that view, it's here as webinars, but no webinars are showing up. It's published, though I don't necessarily want that actually, because I'd like to probably show even unpublished ones. Should be here. Oh, that's weird. There's something about that published flag that did. Oh yeah, I know what it is. I think the migration is broken. So going back to migration. Yeah, this is a problem right here. Okay, so this is something. So the status on the old site, status had 3 values. It was pending, active, and completed. So this status is actually just the status on the new site, because it's a node. This is just published or unpublished. So this, I think, has a 2. It's completed. It's a completed webinar, so it's got a 2 instead of a 1, and that's why it's not showing up in views. So what we really need is like, well, let's just fix this. Let's go to the content types, webinar. And we need to add a field status in here. This will be a list integer, and we'll call it status. It'll be field status. It'll have 0, which is pending, 1 active, and 2 completed. And I think the default I had before was pending. And then it becomes active. And I don't know if we have this totally set up, but I think the way I had it before is once it gets a URL or something, then it becomes active. Though I don't know if that's necessary anymore. Okay, so all right, so we have field status. So then here, let's make this field status comes from status, and then the status is a default value of 1. All right, let's roll back this migration and just re-import this 1 real quick and make sure that that comes through correctly. Okay, so we'll rerun that one. So field status is 2, status is 1. Let's see if that worked correctly. So status is completed. All right, so that did bring the 2 over correctly. All right, now if I refresh here, it shows up. Okay. So let's add a few more fields to the table. So we have the title of it. We want the start date. And something short. So maybe just like the default short date. We should probably have we can list the URL. If there is one, in this case there isn't, but that's okay. And let's do the operations links. Okay, this will allow us to edit it or delete it. So I think that's enough for now. Let's, although we maybe should make this table sortable by the default sort should probably be like, well, I mean, ideally you'd have the next one there, but we can do start date, sortable, descending. That means ones that are in the future will be at the top, but that's okay. Sortable with title, we can do that. It's probably not that useful, but sortable by, and then take out this sorting. Okay, so now it looks like, you know, a regular sort of admin thing. This doesn't have a label for some reason. And let's see, we probably need to set the permissions. This permission for this page should be like, I thought there was like a webinar. There's like delete. I thought there was, I guess there's not like just an admin. I'm going to put it as access to content overview page because that's basically the same. I mean, you could get to that. You could get to it from the node listing. So this is just slightly smaller than that. We're going to have to come through and do more granular permissions on this when we add, because people shouldn't be able to see any webinar. They can only see webinars that were for a class they were in. So we're going to have to come and add more permissions to the individual webinars later. Okay, the only other thing is let's do a full pager because I don't like the mini pager. And let's add, we should add a description. Because it looks kind of weird when you don't have one there with that menu page. All right, so let's save this. Now, if I go back over here to the LMS, you'll see I have the webinars link, and here's my description. Can click through here, and then here's my admin page. All right, so the next thing I'd like to do is let's add, and you can see I can edit or delete from here. And so it works just like a custom admin page, just like the content page, but only for webinars. Oh, one thing I should have added there is actually the status. And that can be sortable. Okay, so that's good. Now let's add a button here at the top so that we can add new webinars individually, and then we'll do the bulk create. So in order to add those individual buttons, like those ones that are usually blue at the top, that are similar to to this link. This is called an action link in the Drupal terminology. So we have to create another YAML file, and we can do this in DT webinar. I should say, actually, if you, before we move on from that view, if you were packaging, if you were going to make a module that you plan to reuse on multiple sites, or if it was going to be a module for contrib, one thing you might want to do at this point is you could export that view. I mean, maybe I should do it just because it's kind of an interesting thing if you've never seen it before. So let's say I wanted to use this DT webinar module on another site that's totally different. I want this view to come with it. Now it's a little tricky because of course this menu is like underneath this DT utils, so it probably needs that too, which is why this is maybe not the best example. But what you can do is you can package the view with the module. It won't make any difference here because we're only working on one site. But you could do config and then create a config folder under your module, create an install folder under that, and then you can put any configuration files in here that should be installed when your module is installed. So we could go back over here, now that the view is created, go to development, configuration, synchronization. Now it might be tricky if you don't know which configuration files to get. But in the case of a view, it's easy because it's just one. So we'll export a single item. It's a view, and the view is webinar admin. So we need to create a new file, and it tells you the file name down here. So let's create a new file with that file name. And then let's add this content into it. And that's all you would need to do. If you gave this module to somebody and they installed it, they would automatically get this view right out of the box. So we can do it that way just for completeness, but I won't do that probably on all the other ones, but just thought I might show that to you because it's kind of neat. All right. So, okay, we were creating an action link. So let's come back here to DT webinars. And actually the reason why I got on that is we're going to create an action link and I'm going to store it in this DT webinar module. It's going to reference the route that view takes up because I want to put it on that page. So it's kind of weird to define an action link in this module when the view is not defined in this module. And so that was the sort of thing that I started to think like, whoa, something's not quite right here. Like, cause we got this dependency that's not properly, not like in this module. But it, you know, since we're doing one site, it would have been fine, but yeah. Okay. So we need to create the DT webinar links action YAML. And the formatting of this one's slightly different. Let me just look up remind myself exactly how it goes. Okay, so this is the one from the old site, which is not totally correct. But so we need something like, it's not a webinar entity anymore. Actually, it doesn't really matter what's here. So let's just say DT webinar, add form. The route name is entity. I wonder what the route name. The route name is the node add form, but how do I give it? I think it's a route parameter or something that I need. And it appears on, in this case, I might need to Google this because I always forget what is the, I always forget what the route name for a view is. The route name for any view is view, view ID, display ID. Okay, so it's view. It was webinar admin, and the display ID is page_1. So where I got that is if you come back here, webinar admin is the machine name of this view. It's in the URL. Page 1. If you highlight over, you see I'm on this page. If I hover over it, it's really tiny at the bottom. You probably can't read it, but this display is, it says at the bottom of that URL, it's page_1. If you added another page, it would be page_2, etc. But yeah, so the view name and the display name. So let's go ahead and add this. I don't think it's going to work because there's like a route parameter that I need. Yeah, that's not the right. Let's see. What is a node? So if I look up the node module, we should be able to see what the add form route is. Okay, so there's the add page in there. Okay, so it's node.add. And then let me just see. There's a way to do route parameters in here, but I don't remember it. No, I don't care about in the routes. I have done this before. I just don't remember. Oh yeah, here, route parameters. Okay, so the route parameter, if I look back here, there's node type is what I need. And it's webinar. Okay, so let's clear caches there. And refresh this. Okay, so now I have an add webinar here. If I click it, it does give me the add webinar link. Probably should have a destination link back to here. So, which I notice like it doesn't, which means it's not going to come back to this page when it's not going to come back to the admin page like you would expect. But I think this also showed us how to do that with the options, the query options. So let's do that as well. Options, query, destination, admin, LMS, webinar. Again, I'll clear caches. Yeah, and now I have the destination set in here. So like when I type this in, we'll just leave everything like that. You'll see it comes back to the admin page automatically. All right. Okay. Sorry for coughing in your ear there. All right. So next. Okay. So I think that's the basic admin here, but I want to bulk create them because usually I like to create these like 6 months at a time because I typically have 2 per week, both on Tuesdays, one at 10 a.m. and one at 4 p.m. so that the people in Europe can get the early one and people in California can get the light one, so I can cover all those time zones. I don't want to sit here and go through one at a time. It's very tedious. So I want to create a bulk creation option here. So let's create a new route and a new form to do that, and then we'll link it there as well. Okay, so under webinar, let's create, do we need a routing file? DT webinar routing.yml, and we will need to create a new route. So let's just call it DT webinar bulk add. And then it needs a path. The path will be admin LMS webinar add bulk. Add multiple, maybe. Maybe we'll say multiple. Sounds better than bulk. So we'll change it up here too. Let's see. Let me look back here just to remind myself the other. We got path. We need defaults. And the default here, it's going to be a form. And we have to create a form. So I'll create a new folder here, form, and a new PHP class. Create multiple webinar form. The namespace needs to be Drupal DT webinar form. And this should extend. Oh, wait, I have multiple spelled wrong. Okay, this extends form base, which is going to require me to create these methods. I'll come back and do that. I'll come back and fill these in a moment. I just want to get this in place. And now back here in the routing, this is now Drupal DT webinar form. Create multiple webinar form. And the title of this on this page should be create multiple webinars. And I think the only other thing we'll need is like a requirements. And let's see, for the requirements, we need entity create access, but I want it for, oh yeah, okay, so there is one for a node type. Okay, perfect. Because we want, you should be able to hit this page if you can create webinars, because then you could do it one by one. So why not do it all at once? So we can use the entity create access for node webinars to allow the system to just say anybody who can do that can access this page. And let me just see, is there anything else? I don't think we don't have any options that we need here. No, I think that's fine. So let's clear that cache. And if we come back over here, what did I say the path was? Add multiple. If I add multiple here, it should load the page. Whoops. Yeah, okay. Type that wrong, but fix the title there, create multiple webinars. And then there's no form here because we haven't filled in the form. So the form, and I have a similar form on my current site, so I'm going to look at it here. To remind myself exactly, because actually it's quite optimized on the current site. Okay. All right. So let's add a form ID. This is just be like DT webinar. What did I call the route? Usually this should probably be the same. Oh, yeah, like add multiple form. And submit form can just, let's just have it dump out the values for right now. And then for the form, I want to be able to, let's see, how many did I allow myself to create last time? Looks like I allowed myself to create 20 at a time last time. So I do something like for I equals 0, I less than 20. I plus plus. We need to I'm going to need a date field. So what I need first is to create like a container for the dates. So we'll have this like form dates of type container. And then inside of here, we're going to have 20 different dates that we're going to be filling in. So what I have on the other one is like form dates I equals, and then I have a field set. Actually, let me just copy this in. This will be faster. Okay, so I have this field set that just says webinar, and it's going to say like webinar 1, webinar 2, webinar 3, as we list down. And then in here, this gets a little complex because eventually, and we'll get to that in this one, I have it actually set the dates, preset all the dates. So like literally can load this form up and then like, boom, just go. But let me just start without doing that first. So then we're going to need a date. And we'll just start by saying the default value is null. This default value is what we need to set. And each one will get like 10 for every next Tuesday. And let's see, do we have anything else? Oh, the duration. The duration is probably always 1 hour, but I do have the ability to set it here. So we'll create another form element inside of each of these for the duration, 1 hour being the default. And oh, I do have a checkbox for create. And the reason is because eventually we're going to pre-fill all the dates in here. and maybe I won't want to create some of the last ones. So I might want to go through and uncheck like the last 5 if I don't really want to create as far as it would otherwise do. Okay, so that should give me all of the date fields. The next thing, I should create an actions container. Actually, I think this should not be a container. This should be of type actions. And then, which will contain my buttons for this form. And my only button for this form will be the submit button. So it'll be in the actions section. It's of type submit. The button type is primary. That'll make it blue. And it'll say create webinars. And then I just need to return the form. All right. So I have some kind of red squiggly. Oh, missing semicolon. All right. So if I refresh this now. Okay, something's wrong. It doesn't like that I didn't put a title for the duration. Okay, so you can see I now have this thing, and if I were to go through here and pick a couple dates, it's not going to do anything. But then if I had another one, and then if I were to go down here and click create, it should just dump out the values. So, oh, I'm missing a key part, which is in order to have this hierarchy, I need form tree equals true so that it respects the hierarchy of the arrays there. So let's just do this again, make sure this is working. Just put a couple in. Okay, so now we have dates, and then inside of dates, can't display this in kind of a weird way, but it's, we do have, why is the date null? Okay, that's weird. I don't know. That doesn't seem like the right values because create is checked by default and it shows 0. Just check one more thing here. Oh, now it looks correct. Although it's not doing what I asked it to do. I thought I was trying to tell it to get the, oh, I guess that's get value. Yeah, this doesn't do that. But all right, I don't know why I didn't show it correctly last time, but it's showing it correctly now. So, oh, I know why, because I needed to refresh the page because I had changed that tree equals true. I think I needed to like refresh or something. All right. So, all right, so this is correct. We have a date and a duration and the create flag. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is let's do the work to have it automatically pre-fill the dates. So I got to look here. So what I had it do before is get the last webinar that exists and have it use that one to then create the future ones. So So we'll say last webinar is null. We are going to need to look up the latest, whatever webinar has the last start date. Sorry. So we're going to need an entity type manager. And we'll need to use the constructor. And because this is a form, we would use the create method. We would override create and return new static container get entity type.manager. And then down here, we can get the latest webinar. Actually, we're going to have to load it. So first, let's just have node storage. And then result equals node storage, get query, condition type is webinar. And yeah, I think we want to sort by field start date, descending. So we count down and then we only need one. So range 0, 1, execute. And then if the result is an empty, then let's get the one item off of it. And we can load the webinar with the node storage, load that. Actually, this will be the node ID. All right. And let's just see if that works. Let's dump out the last webinar. Okay. So here's the last webinar value. Field start date. Okay, and this is like the test one that I just created. So it's set up for 311. So that's a good test. So we need to So the way I've done it over there on the old site is start date equals null. And then once I get the last webinar, I get the start date. Actually, I probably should do something like start date equals new date time now. And then down here, I can do, if we've actually found one, then the start date should be new date time next Tuesday. Oh, wait, no, you can't do it from, I want to do it from, you can't do that with a date time, I guess, huh? Date time. Yeah, you can do it. No, that doesn't work either. So I have to use string to time. I was trying to see if I could avoid using string to time, but it doesn't appear to be the case. So start date timestamp is going to be string to time next. Actually, hold on. Yeah. Is there something I can use? Yeah, there's nothing here that lets me do it like a string to time does. That's annoying. That's unfortunate. Okay. So anyway, it will work with string to time. String to time next Tuesday. But I need to string to time last webinar, get field start date. Let's bring this down a little bit. Field start date. It's the first one, get the value, and it's the value key. That is the single date that starts this. So this start date timestamp will give me the next Tuesday. So basically the Tuesday after whatever the start date is of the last webinar. So this won't work necessarily if if the 10 o'clock one is done and the 4 o'clock one is not done, then this will not work. But assuming that it's correct up to the day, it will work, which is usually the case. All right, so I have the timestamp. So then the start date, date time, create from format C, I think. Is that right? For a Unix timestamp. So now if I print out, if I dump the start date, what do I get? Nope, got some kind of problem. What have I got here? I think that might be the wrong format. What is a Unix timestamp? Yeah, C is the wrong one. That's the ISO date. Timestamp is uppercase U. Okay, so that makes, so the 15th, is that right? 15th, a Tuesday, probably so. Okay, so that's the next Tuesday after the 11th. So now I have the right date. Now I just have to get the right times. So what I have is, in my other code, is I have some default times. They're just coded in here, which is not like great, but 10 and 4, those are my default times. It's been that way a long time, so I think it's okay to just leave it. So now we need to fill in the time. So let me just, I'm scanning through how I did this before. Okay, so when I come down here, I need to set, it's the default value that needs to change. So if start date is a null, which actually it'll never be null because I set it to now, so I don't need to worry about that. What is session count time? Okay, I have kind of a weird way of doing this. I think this would be better. I think I can just do something like for each default times as time. Oh wait, how do I know which one? Oh, no, what I did before is actually not a bad idea. So I need to like loop through like odd even or something sort of here. So I have a session time count. Starts at 0 because I need to do 2 sessions on a single day. So if the session time count is greater or equal to the default times, then that means we need to reset and go to the next day, the next Tuesday. So let's come back and do that one. So if it's not, because it starts off as 0, so then what we would do is the start date is just the start date we have, but we need to add the correct time to it. Where do I do that? It's weird. Oh, yeah. Okay. So can't remember. Can you set the time? Yeah, you can set the time. So let's define this slightly differently because it'll make this easier. Let's do hour, minute, second, and then the same thing again, but with 16. Let's define it like that, which then allows us down here to just do this more simply. To set time is session time count, or no, default times, session time count, which is currently 0 on the first run through, which will be the 10 o'clock time, hour. So actually, maybe I should just do something like time equals this. So then we have time hour, time minutes, time seconds, and that's actually my default value. So maybe I can just, maybe I don't even need default value. Let's just put start date in there. So let's see what that does. Undefined key minutes. So obviously I messed something up. Oh, it's just minute. And second. Okay, so that doesn't appear to have worked correctly. Let's see what the start date is. Dump this out. Oh, so it is correct. Actually, no, it's not correct because it's got the wrong time zone. This is I think this should set the correct time zone. Oh, I need to set the time zone first, I think, and then set the time. Because it's shifting it after. Okay, so this looks okay so far. So, I mean, it's the same date every time, but it is a date. Now, why is it not filling in here? What is this default value expecting? Oh, maybe it needs to be a Drupal datetime instead of a datetime. Which Drupal datetime is like a slight wrapper around datetime. So it actually does everything that it works the same as a datetime. Yeah, there we go. So now it fills it in. Now it's got the same one for every time that's expected. So for each one of these we do, we need to session time count plus plus. And that will bump it up to the next one. Now that's going to break this. That should, so if I look at it now, that should get like 2 of them and then it's broken. No, it's broken all the time. Okay. So, because this is what bumps it up to 4, but eventually it gets too high and I have to reset it. So again, we would do this same operation to get a new start date. And we would start with the current start date's timestamp and go to the next Tuesday after that. And then we would reset this session time count, which is which of these are we doing, 0 or 1? Okay, now they're all 4, which is not what I would have expected. Maybe, you know what? Maybe manipulating the start date is a problem. Yeah, reusing the start date object could be the problem. So what if because it's basically giving me the last one or something. Well, not exactly. But let's do default time equals new Drupal datetime start date format C. Okay, that also did not work. Oh, wait, hold on. This is now needs to be default time, default. I see. Default value, not default time. Okay, now it's working correctly. So you can see it's 3:15, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3:22, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3:29, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So basically it gives me all the next Tuesdays, 10 and 4 automatically. And if I click here, then it submits all that. So there's a few more things that we need to do. Because this isn't enough. Like the webinars have other fields that need to be filled in. Specifically, they need a title and they need the meeting type. So let's do that. So those are going to be the same for all of them. So we can actually just do this. Let's do title and I'll preset it to live question and answer session, which is what all of mine usually are called. And then for the meeting type, ideally meeting type is a entity reference to a taxonomy term. Ideally, we would be able to have the autocomplete. And I did figure out a way to do that before. What I did, and I'll bring it in here. Oh, I don't know. I got to think of how to do this. Yeah, I'm not sure how to do it this way with the node form. What I had done before is basically get the entity creation form and loaded it in here and then pulled that one item out of it. Not. But we can try. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. All right. So the way I did that is, okay, so I got actually we have the node storage somewhere down here. So let's do it right down here. So in this case, we want to take the node storage and create a new node. It needs to be of type webinar. And then we get a form object for a node and give it the webinar. And hopefully that's enough that it gets the correct node form. That's what I'm not sure about. Let's dump out the form just to see what we get. And let's see. Oh, what this is. These are the right things. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the thing I need here is meeting type, I believe. Meeting type widget 0 target ID. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. So then all I need to do is grab that one element out of that form. And so it's the same thing. I'm going to copy the code over because it's the same. The add form. Oh, actually, I think it's field meeting type now. Yeah. It's field meeting type. Actually, it is a bit different, isn't it? Field meeting type widget 0 target ID. Widget. So I need a 0 in here as well. So this is the specific element just for that one thing. And then I mean, if we had other fields from the add form that we wanted to bring in here, we could. I don't think any of the other ones are necessary for this. Okay, so now I have this, and yeah, so see, I can fill in, I've got the autocomplete that works with taxonomy. Okay. So we're right at the time. Let's see, how much longer is this going to take? Actually, this won't take that long. Let's just finish it up. Probably take about 5 or 10 minutes to finish this up. So let's just do it. I'm going to copy in the interest of time, I'm going to copy in the code I had on the old site, and then we'll adapt it. Now that it's a node, it's going to be a little different. So when we submit this form, okay, I don't know why I'm getting form input, but let's see. Actually, that's weird. I'm not really sure why I'm doing that. Let's just let's look at the form values real quick. Like, why would I need to get the input? Sometimes that does happen, but I don't know why that would be the case here. It may be the case because I sort of snuck that thing out of the. Yeah, the target ID is null. So I think there's something about the fact that I sort of smuggled that item out of the normal node form that doesn't work quite right here. So that's why I'm getting the user input. Okay, so if you're not aware, because most of the time you don't need to use the user input, the getting the form values is like what after it goes through the Drupal form submit, like part of that process, and it like organizes them in the form state. Getting the user input is like literally the form values that go across the wire, like on the HTTP, like when you actually submit the form. So everything is in the form input. So like if even though sometimes it gets cleared out by Drupal before it goes in the values, it gets filtered somehow. So let's refresh this and just do it again. Dumping out the form input just to see. So in form input, field meeting types, yeah, see, this is actually what's in there. So if for some reason you ever submit a form and the data is not coming through, you can usually get it from the form input. Okay, so I have the, this is no longer called name, it's called title. The title. And then the meeting type ID, what I'm looking for here is, if you look over here, there's some name and then there's a number in parentheses. This is basically looking, only this is field meeting type 0 target ID. And I'm looking for any digits inside of parentheses. That's what this regular expression does, and that gets me that meeting type ID. And then down here, I'm looping through all the date values, which is this table. And if create is 0, means it's unchecked, then I should just skip this one. That's what this does first. Then I create some values. So I have the meeting type target ID, only this now needs to be field meeting type 0 target ID. Why do I set the date? Wait, where did that date come from? Oh, I see. Actually, let me see exactly how that looks. Okay, so we've got a Drupal datetime object here. It's in. Okay, so it's in my local time zone. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this set time zone, this is actually not the best way to do it. I need to set it into the storage time zone. So this date object, set time zone, and it is UTC, that is the storage time zone, but there's a constant that's date time item interface date storage, not date storage format, date storage time zone. It's UTC, so it doesn't really make a practical difference, but probably you should code it to the constant, not just UTC, in case it should ever change in the future. All right, so okay, so we set the time zone there to UTC. We set the title to title. The start date is, we need to format that date in like the ISO format, which is what's done here. Duration, we can just give it the values from the field. And let's not create it yet. Let's just dump out the values. I want to look at it first and see if it looks reasonable before we start saving. Okay. Oh, I still got something else in here. Yeah, I got this one in here. Okay, so yep, the field meaning type gets the right ID, duration. Okay, so this and this time, 1400, that's correct. That's 10 o'clock, but in my 10 o'clock in UTC should be 1400 UTC. So that level looks correct. So now we just need to, we're going to need a node storage object. So let's just do that here at the top. Okay, and then rather than getting it every time here. So node storage create, actually we're going to need one more value because this is a node now. We're going to need type equals webinar. Before there was no other type of the webinar, so it didn't need that bundle. And so let's have it create one and then return just as a test. Okay, so let's see if, so it did something, I think. Okay, here's live Q&A. Start date's not right. Oh, it's not start date, it's field start date. Yeah, these are field start date and field duration. Okay, let's delete this one. Try again. All right, so that created my 10 o'clock one. Now notice it's already tied into Zoom. So not only did it create it, but it created a Zoom meeting for it automatically. So that's great. And yeah, so I'm going to delete this. And then let's go ahead and try them all. So I'll take out this and I'll leave in my message here that just says webinars created. And let's try to create a bunch of them. Okay, so webinars added. If I click on the webinars, we see that it has created all of them and created all the Zoom meetings for them. So I should double check. Is it? Yep, it's got the live. It's got the right link there. So that's all good. Now notice one thing that's cool here is if you needed to create more than 20, because it's automatically set to go after the last webinar, now it's like all queued up to do another 20. So it can just pick right up on the next set. All right, so I'm gonna stop there because this is basically done. One thing, we could clear the caches just to make sure I get the title correct. But I think this is basically done. Yeah. So there we go. Now we have, oh, you know what? I didn't create, wait. I forgot to create the button. Sorry, let's create the button real quick. So that'll be an action link. So it'll be add multiple form. The route name is our route. It doesn't need parameters, and we can leave the destination on there. That's fine. Add multiple webinars, we'll say, and it appears on this page. Clear caches, and we should have a button here now. Yeah, so now we can add webinar or add multiple webinars, which probably should say. And that goes to our bulk creation form. All right, so that's a good place to stop. Thank you for watching the live session this week. Hope it was informative about how to create like a custom form and how to generate nodes and whatnot programmatically. We kind of did all that. Remember that if you want to see what we're going to be working on each week, you can sign up at DrupalTutor.com/live, put your email address in, and you'll get an email every week telling you what we'll be working on. And we'll be here every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, so I'm Wayne Aker, and thanks for joining, and hope to see you next Wednesday.